are you going? Great to be back in the locker room again. Everything is great tonight. Everybody's drinking, nobody smells yet. And it is a great time to be here. Actually, and my God, that introduction, I thought I'd die before you finished the dance.
I shortened that thing.
Holy Christ, that was really something. Anyway, what I plan to do tonight, outside of talking about Tom Brady and where he's going to be next year, probably San Diego, we'll get into that later on. And I will tell you this, the book, can you put the book up for a second? There he is. That man is luckier than anybody I know tonight, except people in Iran. So, don't worry about it. John, right here, John Harrison, who is one of the great cinematographers in the world, also sells books. So he has my book, if anybody here is interested in it. It's a good deal of what, $120?
Just $20, yeah.
Anybody's interested afterwards, you can get the book, no big deal, whatever. So what I want to do tonight is start out and have you really find out where this all started. And then kind of bring you up to what it's like today. And then we'll go on to the Q&A, get into Brady and all the, and Gronk's party in Miami Beach with sand in his hair and all the other crap. But what I want to do is start out and let you know where we came from and where we are now. 1920, these people gather, no idea what they're going to do in the Canton automobile place, and decide that they're going to have a football league, and they bring probably a person that was as legendary as anybody was Jim Thorpe. And a group of people got together and said, wait a minute, college football is so big, let's put together a league and see what we can do. From 1920 on, and it's interesting about all of the leagues that didn't make it, the National Football League, this was the forerunner of it. And from 1920 to 1933, when my father, Bert Bell, bought the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets with my mother's money, who was a star in Broadway at the time. Her name was Frances Upton. She had introduced him to pro football. College football at that time was so big you couldn't believe it. His father, John C. Bell, was second in command on the Walter Camp's Rule Committee and was the person that negotiated with Teddy Roosevelt to stop college football from being banned. There were deaths in college football. Roosevelt said that's the end. And the Walter Camp Rules Committee, with John C. Bell in charge, went and negotiated at the White House with Teddy Roosevelt to save the game. So his father to his son, who was Bert Bell, who in the front pages of the Philadelphia Inquirer, they asked his father, who was a trustee, one of the most powerful people in the country, one of the richest people in America, where's your son going to go, coming out of prep school? And he said, he's going to Penn or he's going to hell. And that was the front page of all of the Philadelphia papers. My father ended up going to Penn, and it's interesting because I was telling John and some other people that you can still see it somewhere on NBC in the newsreels. Bert Bell threw the first pass in Rose Bowl history in 1917. That's when Penn, unlike Michigan and Alabama and Ohio State and the teams you see today, the Ivy League was really actually the most important league in America. Bert Bell was the quarterback of that Penn team in 1917 that went out, played in the Rose Bowl, played against Oregon, and he threw the first pass in Rose Bowl history, which you can see on NBC, wherever the hell it is. But that was the beginning. College football was so big then, the idea of starting what is today the NFL was impossible. But these group of owners got together, and finally in 1933, Art Bruni, whose family still owns the Steelers, and Bert Bell came in the league at the same time. Bell buying the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets, walking down the street. And this is the interesting thing about, you think today everything is planned, everybody's got advisors, all the big companies, they sit down and figure out how we're going to do this. He bought the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets out of bankruptcy, was walking down the street, and looked up and saw a sign that had Franklin Roosevelt's National Recovery Act eagle. And he said, that's going to be the name of the team. That's how the Eagles today got renamed from that day on. Then later on in the year, and there's a whole thing that you can see, many of you, if you're from Arlington, on the Arlington cable system is a documentary that's being put together. John knows a lot about it. We've done already the first 4 or 5 of the segments. It will be a documentary. It tells the true story of Bert Bell and the NFL, and particularly those Eagles of that time. And here was the story of the league at that time, except for the Redskins, which originally started out here in Boston, New York Football Giants, the Chicago Bears, and the Green Bay Packers. Nobody was making any money. Bert Bell, Art Rooney, who then owned the Steelers, and these other people were going broke. 20 teams went out of business, never made it in the NFL. And my father one day said, on a train out to try and sign a player in Minnesota. And in those days, there's no draft. The richest teams signed the players, and that was it. He went out to sign the player. His name was Koska, great player at the University of Minnesota. Went out there, negotiated for 3 days, and Koska, in the end, turned him down and signed with, yes, the Brooklyn Dodgers, the football team, the Brooklyn Dodgers. And on the way back on the train, which you can see in this segment that we did for ACMI, he said there's got to be a better way. He went into the league meetings that year and said, we're only as strong as our weakest link. If we can't find a way to survive, you're only going to have 4 teams left in the league. There will be no league. College football is just too big. So in the end, he finally got past the thing that saved every league. And I've told people in the NFL today, if Bert Bell doesn't invent the pro football draft, we're talking about something else. The Bruins, wherever it is. Every league adopted that after that. The first NFL draft was in Philadelphia in 1937. And it's interesting, they had it at his father's hotel because nobody could afford to go anyplace else. And the first draft that they had, nobody showed up. There was no media, there was nothing. Now today, you see, Las Vegas is going to be the next place that gets thousands of people and millions of dollars spent. The NFL draft, by the way, is second only for TV viewing to the Super Bowl. So what Bert Bell did in 1937 gave everybody a job today. It saved that, and every other sport after that actually adopted that draft that he had that first time.